Hello and welcome to Jank It Up Fuzzball, episode 27. I'm your host, Brian, aka Quarren Janker. I am super excited to speak to you today, mostly about the charity event that we staged with Coaxium Gaming and Kingwood Hobbies this past weekend. Lots of details from that. I want to tell you all about it. But first, let me just wish a happy holidays to you and yours. I know that my kids are counting down the hours from when they get out of school. I'm recording this on a Tuesday afternoon. And the kids are in it for a few more days, but it's going to be great. Looking forward to spending time with them. Looking forward to seeing some Star Wars with them. Rise of Skywalker is days away. We also need to get caught up on an episode or two of Mandalorian, so that'll be exciting. And there's more Destiny in my future. Here in Houston, we have a Prime on January 4th, so I don't know if I will be able to record between now and then. I'm hoping to, but if not, next episode we'll let you know just how badly I played, or with a little luck, I'll let you know what I'm gonna play, and then you can tell me just how badly I'm going to play. The purpose of this episode, however, is to talk about the White Elephant Sealed Deck Charity Christmas Tournament that myself and Kingwood Hobbies and Coaxium Gaming put on this past weekend. It was a fantastic success, and I'm going to go over kind of the gist of the event, a lot of the details. I want to go over the randomized deck that I got, and I'll talk about my games, and that's certainly part of it. After that, we will crack 2 packs. We had such a good time, and I say we, meaning me, but I had such a good time cracking a pack from Game Shop of Destiny and a separate pack from Kingwood Hobbies. Last episode, we're going to do it again. This time, we'll give Kingwood Hobbies the opening pack. We'll do that first, and then we will open one from Game Shop of Destiny. I'm tremendously appreciative of both of them and their support of Jank It Up Fuzzball. We also have one last giveaway in 2019, so if you'll stick around towards the end, I will give you details on how to get yet another monochromatic card and a Jank It Up Fuzzball Power Action token. So let's dive in. I don't even want to bury the lead here. I just want to come right out and say that on a really beautiful Saturday afternoon in December here, just north of Houston, we raised $286 for a local chapter of Toys-for-Tots. And I just want to give a heartfelt thanks to the organizers and also the people that played. Obviously, I had an idea. I shared it with Trey from Kingwood Hobbies. He also really responded to the idea, and we put this together. And we really didn't know how many people we were going to have. I believe like a week out, maybe 6 days out, we only had like 6 people registered, and I was one of those 6. So I was like, hey, that's okay. We knew that if you've heard me talk about this, $12 from every entry, every registration fee goes straight to Toys-for-Tots. So even with 6 people, that's $72, and that's not nothing, right? That's an impactful donation to a worthy cause, and that was awesome. Obviously, you want to try to get that number higher. That would have been great, but then, like the day before, Trey sends me a text saying we have 19 players, and I was just over the moon, super excited. That meant, of course, more work for Trey because he had to craft these decks. It wasn't just randomizing and throwing cards together. He had to put together some character pairings and then build a deck that would synergize with those. And not only that, but Trey wrapped them. It was amazing to show up at his place. This is where he hosted the event, just given the size. And he had 19 packs wrapped lovingly in gift wrap paper, and it was really, really awesome. So just off the top, I need to send some thank yous. Thank you to Trey for hosting the event and for providing, really running the event, providing prize support, providing the venue. That was amazing. Coaxium Gaming, obviously Trey through Kingwood Hobbies, but he also is a content creator along with others at coaxiumgaming.com. They have some really interesting articles. And then something kind of an offshoot, or I don't actually know if it's an offshoot, but they're now podcasting. Diggity Destiny is the product of Trey and Jonathan Lowe and Christian. These are Houston Destiny players, and they've just started a podcast that's super entertaining. It's a fun time. It's not edited. There's no Wookiee roar over the obscenities. Not that it's terribly profane, but it's nice. It's casual. You can tell it's a group of friends talking about Star Wars, talking about Destiny. And it's really insightful. This last episode 3, they talked about the balance of the Force and some decks they would run. And it was just really interesting to hear some ideas that were different than some of the other ideas I've heard on other podcasts. So you can follow them through coaxiumgaming.com, and there will be links to Diggity Destiny. You can actually play them in the browser, or you can do that. So big shout out to all of those people for doing that. The event this past Saturday was great. You know, the event started at 2 p.m. Central Time, but Trey invited people over to have a potluck, kind of a community potluck beginning at noon. And so I would have loved to have made something, but I had a really busy last week of the semester. Again, I'm a college teacher, and so I had a commencement Friday night. It just didn't work out. But I picked up some tamales Saturday morning and made my way over there, and there was an amazing spread of just all kinds of homemade goodness. It was just really, really impressive. We're talking about like family recipe pulled pork. There were chicken dishes. There was meatloaf. There was ribs. There were side dishes. There were, of course, desserts. It was really nice. It was nice to have. It felt like a holiday party, right, amongst close friends. So that was really nice to kind of enter into the tournament. And then as people kind of gathered in at 2:00, we began the tournament proper. And if you recall, the rules of the tournament, the exchange part was that Trey built all the decks necessary to play. And there were 19 participants, so Trey became the 20th participant. He was, Trey, if you've ever heard Trey talk about how he likes to run his events, he would much rather run the event and not play. He's just that kind of person. He loves running the event. He loves making sure everyone else is having a good time. But in this case, we needed him. We had an odd number. And so Trey volunteered to play, which is great. So that means he had 20 decks that he had to make and then wrap. And they were all there under a tiny little Christmas tree for us to choose from. And it's a white elephant exchange. So the first person, we were randomly assigned numbers, and whoever drew number 1 got to choose a deck. And they would open it. They would read the character pairing off to everyone. And I took notes, and I'm going to read out all the teams in just a second. So bear with me. And then the next person could either steal that deck or open up another one, and so forth until we're done, right? So the last player would steal, or basically until the last deck was opened. At that point, whoever had number 1, because they're kind of in the worst position because their only option is to open a deck. Whoever had number 1, they were able to swap with any person they wanted to. So number 1 ultimately got their pick of decks, which was super great if you drew number 1. And it was not me. It was Jason. So Jason, a great Houston community member, drew number 1. And so he got us going. So what I'd like to do, just so you know, the tournament was scheduled for 5 rounds of Swiss. So we played 5 rounds of Swiss. And then we cut to a top 4. And then we had prizes for everybody. And so before I get into the decks, just so you know, there were 2 prizes dedicated to first and second place. There was the foil monochromatic Death Trooper card that I brought back from Worlds, in addition to one of the white playmats from the last cycle. It was the Chewbacca playmat. Those were the 2 grand prizes. So whoever finished first got their choice of those 2, and the second place got whatever was left over. But Trey also had 19 prizes for everyone. So there were 19 prizes that were set aside on a table. They varied from more monochromatics or alt arts to game accessories to tokens to Star Wars things, model kits, action figures. And what I loved about it was that basically between each round, Trey would draw three names, 3 numbers, and then that person would be able to go up and pick whatever they wanted from what was available. So instead of saying, hey, we're auctioning off this specific gift, once your number came up, you got to go to the table and each person got to choose from what was available. And I thought that was really, really nice. Every player that came and registered, they got a deck, and they're going to go home with their deck. So they got a deck. Now, granted, it's infinite decks, and a lot of these players probably have every card that's probably in this deck, but they still get a deck that they can take and share and or do whatever they want with it. But they have a deck. But also, Trey gave each participant a set of the FFG promos from one of the quarter kits. So everyone got a copy of the Alt Art Counterintelligence, Mastermind, Ewok Ambush, DX2 Disruptor Blaster Pistol, Jedi Lightsaber, and Possessed. And they look nice. So that was awesome. And everyone got a Jank It Up Fuzzball Power Action token. So that was also included in the prize kit for the tournament. Remember, though, it was a $20 entry. 12 of that went straight to Toys-for-Tots. And so if you think about it, 19 times 12, we had $228 raised just on entry alone. We had some just cash donations. People just said, hey, go ahead and give this to that. And then also, previously I had been selling Power Action tokens, and $1 from each order went towards Toys for Tots. And at the event itself, I sold additional Power Action tokens, and $1 from each token sold went to Toys for Tots. So once we added all that up, we raised $286. And within 12 hours of the event ending, all of that had been sent to Toys for Tots. And so, that's pretty amazing. Here we are. It was December 15th, and yet we had contributed almost $300 to a local charity that can certainly contribute in making, hopefully, a whole bunch of children's Christmases and holiday season just that much nicer. And, Destiny aside, it was amazing to be able to have that many people show up, support the cause, and to be able to give that amount back to charity, to Toys for Tots. It was awesome. And let me just say that I know Trey and I would love to do this again next year. And I hope Destiny persists. And I hope we are going to be able to do it again, because there's already some things we've seen after the first time through. Hey, what can we do to make it a little better, make it a little more exciting? And we'll work on that. But this could be in your community. I'm not saying you have to do it, but it's not hard to organize one night at your normal game shop to say, hey, let's all chip in a certain amount above and beyond. And let's just give that amount just from this one event, just from this one night. Let's give that to a worthy cause, whether that be Toys for Tots or anything else that gets you excited. I would challenge you, or at least think about, maybe if you're the leader of a group or you're kind of an organizer for a group, there's an opportunity here. We all love this game, and this may be a different game. Maybe you also play X-Wing. Maybe you also play Magic. I think you'll find that there's always an opportunity to say, hey, one night a year, 2 nights a year, however you want to do it, let's play this and we'll have a good time, and we can play something janky. We can play something different. But let's give it a purpose. Let's make it an opportunity so we can give back or give to a worthy cause. And I left after being at Kingwood Hobbies for 9 hours on Saturday. I left with the biggest smile on my face. I just felt so ecstatic about what we had accomplished and what the community had gave. And it was an amazing feeling. I didn't play particularly well, but I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun just from the beginning of the potluck all the way through the gift exchange portion of dealing the decks out to playing 5 rounds of Swiss and hanging around for the top 4. It was awesome. And just knowing that we raised almost $300 over the afternoon was fantastic. So hats off to Trey. Hats off to Coaxium Gaming. Hats off to Hugh, Houston. I know some people drove more than an hour to come to this event, and I can't thank you enough. I just really, from the bottom of my heart, genuinely, I'm appreciative. So let's talk about some Destiny. We had, as I mentioned, 20 decks that were being passed out. I'm going to read you these decks. Now, Trey is an amazing deck builder, and if you should go to Coaxium Gaming, look at some of his articles about building around Wicket, and he's working on one for Bib Fortuna, and they're just really clever. He had a while ago Kylo 2 and Dengar, and they're just interesting decks. He sees the matrix that I don't see. There were moments on Saturday where he would come by, and even to me, he'd be like, hey, you know what you're doing with that deck yet? With this huge smile on his face, because he knows he crafted this deck, each deck, I'm sure, with an idea for this is the optimal way to play this deck. And so, yes, there will be some people that'll be like, this deck is junk. Well, yeah, it's infinite jank. It's supposed to be. But Trey just didn't randomly throw some things together, right? He put pairings together, and then he gave you resources, or at least tools, for making it competitive. Now, not everyone played particularly well because, it's a deck we just sat down and tried to figure out. But it's still impressive. So let's talk through. I'm going to read these out in the order they were taken. There were about 10 steals throughout the event. I was hoping for maybe a little more stealing, but that's okay. One deck, which I'll talk about in a second, actually got stolen enough times where it got locked down. So once the deck was stolen 3 times, it could not be stolen again. And so then we had a few other decks that were stolen twice. So here we go, the very first deck. And I'm just going to read you the character pairings. We didn't really know what the cards inside were, but the very first deck that was opened was E-Palp 2 and Gamorrean Guard. So again, Palpatine 2, Elite with Gamorrean Guard. The next one up was Elite Kira with 2 rookie pilots. I know. That's the one that Trey actually ended up piloting. I would like to know what was in there. I just don't know. I don't have all the details. Third deck up was Wedge, a Jawa, and Elite Wicket. Your head's spinning, I can tell. Right. Next one up, Elite Chirrut, Elite Ketsu with Lightsaber Mastery. I don't know if it's Elite and Elite, but Lightsaber Mastery was in it. So however that works out with the math. Next up was Dooku 2 and E Boba Fett. So Boba Fett from Legacies and single die Dooku 2. Then next up was the one deck that was stolen 3 times, and it was just simply 3 Jedi Sentinels. So, wow, right? 3 Jedi Sentinels, they're 10 health apiece. They each get a shield to start the game. That's 33 health. So for any reason you take shields or lose the roll-off, you start with 35 health. Now it's mono blue hero, but 35 health is a lot of health. And that got stolen 3 times. We had a Sienna deck, also featuring Executioner and 2 First Order Stormtroopers. We had a Plo Koon with double Force Mystics. So Plo Koon with 2 Force Mystics. We had a Val deck, Val, Jabba 2, and an Executioner. We had a second Plo Koon deck, and this is funny. Plo Koon, and then double Trusted Informant. So they were joking about this on the last Coaxium Gaming, but it's Plo Koon with 2 Trusted Informants. Every time the Trusted Informant activates, you can look at your opponent's hand. So when Plo Koon activates, you can look at the hand twice. But you've probably already seen it. So it's kind of yes, totally jank, totally fun. I think that one was particularly tongue-in-cheek, but it was great to see. I laughed out loud, and I was excited. And I actually had to play against it first round. So I'll let you know how that goes in just a second. There was an E. Bosk E. Veers deck. There was a Quinlan Voss, and then Dooku 1 deck. And then my deck, I chose number 13. And rather than steal Sablines, I decided to open my own. And I grabbed one. And it was Arinda Price, General Hux, and Quarren Tracker. So all single die, but it also had Bendu's Lair. So I was pretty interested in that. Although a couple of people were threatening stealing it from me. But that was my deck. That's what I ended up playing with. Next up was Elite Dengar, Elite Aura Singh. Then we had Elite Hera, Rebel Engineer, and Elite Anakin Skywalker, the pod racing kind. Then we had a Lobot deck with Maz 2 and Elite Wicket. So Wicket makes a second appearance. We had an Elite Boznaz, a Palace Guard, and a Trusted Informant. Next up, we had Ray 2 Potu. And I know you're immediately like, what? No, it's not the competitive deck, but it was Ray 2 Potu. But obviously, Trey, insists that, hey, I'm not going to build a competitive deck with that. So there were a lot of janky cards. But Ray 2 Potu made an appearance. There was then E Sebulba and then 2 Force Outcasts. So Sebulba with 2 Force Outcasts. And then lastly, the last deck was Sienna, Force Outcast, Force Sensitive Outcast, I should say, and a Bazine deck. So there you have it. Those were the 20 decks that were opened. Just doubling back to number 1, Jason, who immediately had his first deck stolen by the second person. Jason had his pick, and he swapped for the Dooku Elite Boba deck. So that's the one he ended up with. So be thinking about those because I'm going to go over my deck. I'm going to give you a quick little introduction to the deck. I'm going to tell you how I did, and then I'll go and talk about top 4. So if having heard all those, try to imagine what decks do you think might be in the top 4.
You've given up years of service, a promising career, prestige. For what? To join a band of failures who don't stand a chance.
I'm going to go through my deck, all the cards that were in it. And again, this is infinite format. And you can imagine that one of the purposes that Trey builds these Dealer's Choice decks is to just alleviate inventory. So there are a lot of janky cards or a lot of cards that show up. That said, I know having played against a lot of decks, there are decks from all 8 sets are here and present. And that is really good. So here is my deck. So we had Arinda Price, who is 10 character points, 10 health. She has 2 melee, 1 discard, 1 resource, special blank. And her special reads, turn another of your dice to any side. And if you control the battlefield, you may resolve that die, increasing its value by 1. Next up is General Hux. He has 11 health for 11 points. His die reads 1 range, 2 focus, 1 discard, 1 resource, and a special. Play a red event from your hand, decreasing its cost by 1 for each character you have. And then lastly, Quarren Tracker. 8 health for 8 points, 1 ranged, 1 disrupt, 1 discard, 1 resource, and he also has a special. Special reads deal 2 damage to a character or deal 3 damage to a character that has a bounty on it. I want to go ahead and say that I don't own any Quarren Trackers, so I actually was completely happy to play this deck because that, I already have plenty of Hux, I already have plenty of price, but getting a new character is a bonus. And then Bendu's Lair. I think we know what Bendu's Lair is, but it has a die, 1 range, 2 indirect, 1 focus, 2 shields, 1 resource, and a blank. And of course, the power action is roll this die into your pool. After you take control of this battlefield, remove its die. There you go. So let's talk through the construction of this deck. So Trey put this together. I think when I saw the pairing, I'm like, oh, what kind of weapons, what kind of upgrades am I going to have? But it's a very interesting build. So to begin, let's start with bounties and downgrades. 2 copies of each of these. 2 copies of Wanted. That's the downgrade bounty that after a attached character is defeated, you gain 2 resources. So there's 2 Wanteds. There's 2 Death Marks. So that's also yellow. After attached character is defeated, you draw 3 cards. So I have 2 Wanted, 2 Death Marks. I also have 2 priority targets. Downgrade bounty, it's red. After attached character is defeated, you may take control of the battlefield and use its claim ability or power action, even if it was used this round. So, if you're Trey, you put this in thinking that you can actually reactivate Bendu's Lair. So I get it. That makes sense. Assuming Bendu's Lair is there, right? I played some games where I didn't have Bendu's Lair, and this was kind of useless outside of giving me a bounty. But with Bendu's Lair, and I did do this in one of my games where I actually killed a character, I was able to take control of Bendu's Lair from my opponent and then immediately roll that die in. It was pretty great. Then I have 2 other downgrades. I have 2 copies of Wounded, so the attached character has -1 health, which again came in pretty handy, and 2 copies of, this goes for you, Brian, from Golden Dice Podcast, 2 copies of Shock Collar. So it's a downgrade equipment. After attached character is activated, deal 1 damage on it. So if you did the math in your head, that's 10 cards that are downgrades, right? Some bounties, 6 bounties, and then 2 or 4 other downgrades. So a third of this deck is downgrades. Let's talk about the upgrades. I had 2 copies of Skill Tracker, and Skill Tracker, my friends, did some work. If you're a fan of Jank It Up Fuzzball, you know that Skill Tracker is actually the only rare card that I've cracked twice. And it is a yellow upgrade, yellow character only. It has a die that reads 1 disrupt, 1 discard, 1 resource, and 2 specials in a blank. And the special is remove a character die. And wow, did I need the special, right? I use this a lot. And it was really helpful to have 2 of those. And I only had 1 yellow character, so that made it a little dicey. But it was still nice to have that on the Quarren Tracker. Also, I had 2 copies of Promotion, red character only. After you play this upgrade, you may draw a card. It's 1 cost. It has a +1 range, +1 melee, focus, shield, resource, and a miss. But that was also nice to get down on either Hux or a render price. All right, then we had 2 copies of On the Hunt. It is a yellow upgrade ability, +1 range, +1 melee, discard, special, special blank. Remove all shields from a character. You may spend 1 resource to remove one of its character or upgrade dies. This also did some work for me. And it's not restricted, so it can be played on red or yellow character. And it has a special. So Arenda, even if I couldn't always flip to something and resolve it for 1, I could special chain with Arenda's special to activate or at least to get some value out of some of my other cards. I had 1 copy of Datapad. It's a resource, +1 resource, +1 resource, special, blank, blank. The special is turn one of your dice to a side, not showing damage. Actually didn't play this at all. I think I saw it a couple of times, but I just didn't immediately see the value in playing it. I had 2 copies of Cunning. It is an upgrade ability, yellow character only. It's got Bib on the artwork. Die reads 1 focus, 1 disrupt, 1 discard, 1 resource, and a special and a blank. It says resolve a special ability on another card in play as if it were your card. Now, it costs 2, and I didn't fully appreciate what it could do. And somewhere in the 4th or 5th round, Trey came by and said, "Hey, you got a handle on it yet?" And I'm like, "No." I flipped Cunning to him. I'm like, "What does this do?" And he said, "Oh, you put that on Quarren Tracker, and then you can resolve his special twice." And I'm like, "Well, that's pretty good." Because his special with the bounty could be 3 damage, right? So that's pretty nice. Next up, 1 copy of Deadly. So this is a card from the Awakenings block, as many of these are. It is 2 cost upgrade ability. It has Boba Fett as the artwork. Action, exhaust this upgrade and remove 1 of attached character's character dice to deal 2 unblockable damage to a character. This, my friends, also did some work. Because Hux, his die wasn't all that. And if I got this card down, I would always put it on Hux, roll him out, and then immediately I could, or with his die in the pool, I could then exhaust this and basically convert that die into 2 unblockable damage, which was nice. Last upgrade was the TL50 Heavy Repeater. This is from Spark of Hope. It is a red 3-cost upgrade weapon. 2 range, 3 range for a pay, plus 3 ranged, discard, and a special, and a miss. Power action, if this upgrade's on a trooper, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a trooper, so that's kind of irrelevant, but you get to turn that die at any side. But the special is deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent and then re-roll this die instead of removing it. So occasionally that I was able to do that because I could use Price's special to turn this to a special, deal the indirect, and then roll it back into the pool. So that was nice. And those are my upgrades. So let's go through the events real quick. I had 2 copies of Hunt Them Down, 1-cost event. It is from Convergence. Resolve one of your dice showing ranged or melee damage against a character, increasing its value by the number of bounty downgrades on that character. So that's pretty nice. I had 1 copy of Free for All. That's from Legacies. It's a yellow event. Remove any number of your dice, then deal indirect damage to an opponent equal to the number of dice you just removed. I'll come back to that a little bit later today. 2 copies of Chain Lightning. That's a red event, 1 cost. Deal 1 damage to a character, then you may spend 1 resource to deal 2 damage to another character that shares a subtype. I had 2 copies of Reversal. It was reprinted in Spark of Hope. 3 cost. Spot a yellow character to remove a die showing damage, then deal damage to a character equal to the value showing on that die. So it costs a lot, but you're able to basically punch someone in the face with their own die, which is pretty nice. And then lastly, 2 copies of Fall Back, which is a card I don't think I had ever seen. It is from the Awakenings block. Each player may choose 1 upgrade, starting with you. Discard all upgrades from play that were not just chosen, but it costs 4. So if you listen to that, if you go through that again, there are 2 red events in this pile. There's Fallback, and then there's Chain Lightning. And that only comes into play because Hux's ability can only be used on red events. So his special, play a red event from your hand, decrease cost by 1 for each character you have, only had a couple of targets. Plus, there was a lot of yellow dependent things, and my weakest character was my only yellow character. So there were some handicaps, and I know that this deck wasn't the only one playing with handicaps. There were a couple of things where it's like, okay, got to make sure I do this right, or wait for this, because a lot of the efficiency of a normal constructed deck wasn't there. And that's not a criticism for the build at all, because again, I just can't thank Trey enough for doing that. If you listen to all these cards and you think about how they could go together, Trey had a very clear vision for how this deck would work. He just kind of gave it to a casual player, which probably let him down. But that was it. So maybe some of you are listening and you're like, oh yeah, I can see what's going to happen with that deck, and that's awesome. Let's talk about my day. I know it's not about me, but I'm your host and I can tell you all about my day before we get to the top 4. But let me just go through my 5 matches. My first up was against a woman named Golda. Her and her husband, Callie, were some of the first people I met, and they had stayed up till like 1 or 2 in the morning cooking. They brought like 5 dishes to the potluck. They were super nice, and it was great to meet them. I met so many new people. I saw familiar people. It was awesome. Neither one of them have played Destiny in a while. Now, they both are familiar with the game, but I don't think they've played since probably early Legacies block, so it's certainly been a while. But Golda was running the Plo Koon double trusted informant deck. So every time the informant runs out, she gets to look at my hand. When she activates the second informant, she gets to, quote, look at my hand again. And then when she activates Plo Koon, she can look at my hand twice. But the cards obviously don't change. You know what? That was I lost. I'll just say that, right? The trusted informants managed to always roll damage, and Plo Koon was shielding up, and I wasn't really sure what to do with my deck yet. I hadn't really even looked through it or understood exactly what was going on, and I got so far behind in the damage race. Time was called, and we were not really anywhere close to being done. She had 2 mostly healthy and trusted informants, and I had a healthy Price but a dead Quarren Tracker, and I had a most nearly dead Hux, and we were just dragging on. And I just finally said, hey, you know what? You've got this. I can't come back. I can't deal whatever, 15, 16 damage. And at first, I think she thought I was either being nice. She's like, wait, are you just letting me win? And I was like, oh no, right? you won this. I just can't compete with, or I can't come back. Time had been called. I had no avenue. You just heard my deck, right? I don't have the ability to pump out that much damage in one turn. So that was it. I did have a cool play. I did, Plo Koon was kind of difficult to kill. She would often put shields on him. And maybe I should have targeted one of the other ones first. But I did use Deadly on Hux. I mentioned how I was able to do 2 unblockable and just, go under some shields to take out Plo Koon. That was probably the highlight of the game for me, for sure. But I also learned some things about the deck. Like, she took out the Quarren Tracker first. And then I realized that with the Quarren Tracker dead, a lot of my cards were offline because they're either yellow only or spot a yellow character. So at that point, I said, okay, from now on, any shields I get should go on the Quarren Tracker to keep him alive. But congrats to Golda. She did it. She took it, and I went to 0-1 and, learned a little bit about the deck and was ready to go for game 2. Game 2 was against Austin. He drove in from College Station, near and dear to my heart because that's where Texas A&M is, and I am an Aggie, for those curious. But Austin drove in from, probably about an hour plus, maybe more. So he was running the Elite Hera Rebel Engineer and Elite Pod Racing Anakin deck. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart. Like, I love hero vehicles. And it was great to see air speeders back on the table and just, Anakin's pod racer and all that stuff. It's just scary, right? I think first round he got on Hera's special, and then he dropped a Y-Wing, and that rolled the special and then just pumped damage into each of my characters. And at that point, I said, okay, I need to control Hera's dice if nothing else. And that's where Skilled Tracker really came into play, because I would roll specials and I would just leave it there until he either tried to focus Hera or re-roll Hera, and then I would immediately remove Hera's special, just get it off the table. And that was my strategy. Now, he had enough mods on some of his air speeders where he would reset them and then deal more damage, and that was really annoying. I would try to kill Anakin, but he'd move damage over, and then I finally did kill Anakin. I finally did kill, I believe I killed Hera second, and it was just back and forth. We went to time again, but this time I claimed a 26-23 victory. So thanks to that, I managed to avoid the 0-2 hole. Austin, unfortunately, went to 0-2, but I was able to get out the win. I used Wounded to great effect, right? I think I may have used Wounded to finish off little Anakin because he had shielded up, but again, shields can't stop Wounded from being played. So he had 6 damage on him with a couple of shields, but Wounded took him out, and that was really, really cool. And Wounded's a fun card because it is damage from hand. It's unblockable damage from hand, which is nice. Now, I know it's not ever probably going to see competitive play, but for jank players like myself, it's a fun card to get down there. Third round, played against Jonathan Lowe of Diggity Destiny, and Jonathan had the Aura Singh Dengar deck. So both elite, both bounty hunters, both just dealing damage. And I think our match lasted 10 minutes, and I died and cried a little bit, and we snuck in a game of standard. I wish I had more to say, but Singh was just, with Singh, I wasn't familiar with her. I never played her. I'd never seen her. She was from Awakenings, but you could discard a card from your hand to resolve her die showing damage for an additional damage. And so all of her 2 guns were suddenly 3 guns, and there just wasn't a whole lot I could do about it. But we finished super early, and so Jonathan was nice enough to say, hey, do you have a deck? And I said, yes, I have. After the Holocron, I had built Gideon, Hask, and Callus with Taking Ground, and he had a Mace Zeb deck. And so in the third round, after he totally stomped me in our jank decks, I did pilot Callus and Hask to a victory over Mace and Zeb, and that felt really good. So at least, even though I lost in the tournament, I took that, which was nice. So that felt pretty good. And Jonathan is super friendly, super supportive. He was one of the first people there on Saturday to buy additional tokens, and I think he bought 4 extra tokens, and that contributed $4 directly towards our charity fund. So Jonathan, thank you. And one more plug for Jonathan at Diggity Destiny. Go check that podcast out. He also has done some writing for Coaxium Gaming, so please check out that content. So 1 and 2, I go into the fourth round, and I play a man named Lincoln. So Lincoln was there, and he was running Elite Boznaz, Palace Guard, and Trusted Informant. So I get to play Trusted Informant again. This one was a back and forth. Boss Nass had rolled about as well as Boss Nass had rolled all day, meaning that he would somehow would not roll blanks because blanks would at least be damage, and he would roll other stuff that he couldn't particularly use. At this point, I had a better handle on how the deck was playing, and I was able to kind of spread my bounties around and kind of target certain people down. And so it again went to time, and I really was hoping that I would deal enough damage, but he just, after that final turn, I'd exhausted all my characters, I'd resolved all my dice, and then he still had enough dice in the pool. He also had some of those Rebel Trooper dice that were out there, and they can get pretty scary. And so he punched through right at the end to take me by a couple of damage points. And I was feeling good about it right up until I lost. And so it was 1-3. It was difficult. And at this point, I do want to say, you had some people that were 1-3. You had some 2-2s. You had some 0-4s. You had some people that were already kind of leaving just because they had prior commitments. But I get it. You show up, you pay your $20, you get a deck, and let's say you're 0-4. That's kind of a feel bad. And I was 1-3, and I love Jank, but it's still not great feeling when you're 1-3. I know Austin had started the day 0-3. I think maybe he finished 0-4. So I get that. I think if we were to do it again, and if any of you are like, this is a great idea, let's do it. My suggestion, for the sake of keeping it fun, is maybe allow players to swap decks between rounds. Anyone that wants to swap a deck can do so. Or what I was talking to Trey is like, maybe if someone's 0-1 or 0-2, we allow them to contribute another $3, $4, $5 to the charity, and they can open a second or an additional sealed and extra sealed deck, and then choose between staying with their current deck or playing this new deck. Because if you get stuck with a deck that you're just not having a good time with, that's not great. And we want people to have fun. So at that point, as an organizer, I was a little bit like, I didn't like hearing a few grumbles. I know exactly where they're from, and I was kind of a Debbie Downer on my deck. I was like, man, I'm 1-3. But I think knowing that, now we can do things differently. So if you're thinking that, hey, here's an idea, what can we do? And if you're using a kind of sealed format where a player doesn't have control over the deck they're running, try to factor in some safeguards that would prevent these kind of feel bad experiences. That would be my advice. Fifth round, I played Kelly. Kelly was, honestly don't know, husband or boyfriend of Golden. So I played him at the end. He was running another aggro deck. So Elite Bosk, Elite Veers. And this is the deck that I think I finally took advantage of my build. So Trey, it took 4 previous games, but I finally got a hold of it. Now, Kelly also hasn't been playing the game in forever, right? I honestly think he hadn't played a game of Destiny in about a year. So there was that, right? I think there were some misplays on his part and just some general not knowing strategy-wise, but he was still rolling aggro, and he was still putting upgrades down and punching me in the face just fine early on. A couple of things went right for me, though, is that as he built up his board state with upgrades on both Bosk and Veers, I had one upgrade on Corn Tracker. It was probably a skill tracker. And then in my hand, luckily, I had fallback. And I managed to get Hux on his special. So maybe I focused to the special. And I felt bad doing this because I feel like Kelly would have no idea this was going to happen. And it just kind of came out of nowhere, but it was the only time I was able to play this card all day. But using Hux's special, I played the red 4-cost event for $1 because I saved $3 because I had 3 characters. And so each player choose an upgrade starting with you. Discard all upgrades from play that were not just chosen. I didn't lose an upgrade, but Kelly lost 3 upgrades. Some of those with die in the pool. And that was pretty rough, right? That was pretty bad. That changed the game, obviously, as you can imagine. And at that point, I just chipped away and worked as best I could on what to do. The game ended. I rolled in Quarren Tracker. I think he had a couple of upgrades on, and then I had a render price also in the pool. Hux was dead at this point. But I had 4 dice in the pool. He had 3 health left, and I played Free For All, which again, remove any number of your dice, then deal indirect damage to an opponent equal the number of dice you just removed. And that was game. And from a Destiny standpoint, it was amazing. because I finally got to play some of the cards that I just hadn't understood or appreciated, and it was awesome from a Destiny standpoint. It was really, really great. And Kelly was a great sport about it. Kelly was also the one that they brought so much food. He brought 2 6-packs of beer. So about halfway through the day, I'm like, "Hey, Kelly, could I have a beer?" And he's like, "Absolutely. I brought it for everyone." And that was awesome. That's what I needed after getting my head kicked in by Jonathan. I need a little reset. And so that was good. So to Kelly and Golda, both players that came out to support the charity, hang with their friends. They hadn't played Destiny in a really long time. Special thank you to both of them for doing that. And that was quite fun. So that was my day. I went 2 and 3. I, of course, didn't come anywhere near top cut, but that was all right. The funny thing is that after that last game, like I want to play this deck a little bit more, right? I know it's not super competitive, and if I built it, I would change some things around. But I love the challenge of, hey, play this, especially when Trey is smiling at you saying, "Hey, did you figure it out yet?" That means that there's a puzzle that he knows the answer to, and I kind of feel like I want to find the answer to that. So I'm going to keep this deck exactly as it is, unless I occasionally borrow the Quarren tracker out of it, and I hope to run it again super casually. What I love about this event is everyone went home with a casual jank deck. So if they wanted to introduce the game to someone, they could just keep this together and immediately have it as a go-to and say, "Here, play this." And some of them are jankier than others, but you know what? It's all good. All right, we're running long on this episode, but I still have more to do. So let me run through the top 4. Have you thought about it? Which top 4 decks do you think are going to show up? Which do you think will be? Well, here they go. The number 1 seed, the only person that went 5-0 was Trey. Now, he's running the event, so he bowed out. He said, "Hey, I know I went 5-0 with Kira double rookie pilot." And he said, he basically dropped. That was nice. But Trey, having built all the decks, it kind of makes sense that Trey would do pretty well. And he did. He went 5-0. So Trey, that's awesome. But thank you also for dropping out. So we had a top 4. Number 1 was Mark. Mark was running Poe Ray. So again, you're thinking Ray 2, Poe 2, that's a pretty good deck. Well, it is. Yes, the character pairing has good synergy. But I was assured that the deck is very different than the competitive Ray 2, Poe 2 deck. And Mark's a very good player. So there you go. Number 2 seed was Jonathan Lowe with his Aura Sing Dengar. I'm glad I could help you, Jonathan, get to the 2 seed. That was awesome. So that was the 2 seed. 3 seed was Jason, and another Jason, different than the Jason that picked number 1, but this was Jason M, I should say. And he was running Chirrut Ketsu Lightsaber Mastery. And the top 4 was Javier. Javier was running Elite Wicket, Maz 2, and Lobot. So what do you think about that, right? Only 1 3-character team and a bunch of aggro. That kind of makes sense. Aggro, while people are trying to figure out what they got, aggro, just slam in and hit them. And that was it. So out of those semifinals, the 2 finalists were Mark with Poe Ray and Jason with Chirrut Ketsu. Congratulations. So those 2 squared off in the finals. And ultimately, the winner was Mark. Mark with Ray Poe, R2P2. He took it down. Now, I asked him, I said, "Well, this clearly wasn't the competitive deck." And he laughed and said, no, it was not the competitive deck. But I said, what were some of the cards that helped him get a win? So afterwards, Mark said that Force Training, Spirit of the Rebellion came up big. And Hold Off. Hold Off is from Across the Galaxies. It is a 0-cost event. It says play only if you have 1 or more dice showing a shield, and then remove a die showing melee damage, or give a character 1 shield. So yeah, against Chirrut and Ketsu, I could see how that would come up pretty big. And then Defensive Position, he said, also came up pretty large. We weren't playing 2 out of 3 because it had already been a pretty long day, but that was it. Mark won. He chose the foil Death Trooper as his top prize, so then Jason got to keep the Chewbacca mat, which was really nice. What I thought was also cool was Mark, when his number was drawn for prizes, he chose the other monochromatic I left there, which was the Praetorian Guard. So he actually snagged, unbeknownst to him, he snagged the 2 monochromatics that I donated to the prize pool. So there you go. You can see a picture of Jason and Mark on the website, jankitupfuzzball.com. You'll also see a couple of other pictures from the event. And it was awesome. I think particularly the top cut, obviously they had fun. They had success with their decks. But even for someone like myself that went 2 and 3, it was great. And while they were finishing up the top cut, I managed to get some more games in with my Callus Hask deck. And so everyone had a good time, right? I left Kingwood Hobbies with a full belly and a full heart, and it was a super enjoyable day, Star Wars Destiny, for me. And Thank you to everyone that participated. Thank you again to Trey and for Coaxium Gaming and Kingwood Hobbies. It was amazing. I hope we can do it again next year. We will tweak it. We will improve upon it. And, whether we raise the same amount, less than, more than, just being able to present an amount to a charity at this time of year is super meaningful. And I think it's very fulfilling. And I just can't say enough about everyone that came out and played in a super janky event. If some of these decks sound interesting to you, I do want to pitch, Trey does this as a service through Kingwood Hobbies. You can just order individual dealer's choice decks. He will just send you a deck built like this. I know he had an order out of Canada for 16 of these. So someone's getting a group together. I mean, how awesome is that? So yeah, that product is available. They're going to be janky. They're going to be infinite. But man, if you just love Destiny, the purity of Destiny, and that's something that I, as a casual player, I love sealed. I love just getting cards and playing them. And that's the way to go. So give it a look on that end. All right, it wouldn't be Jank It Up Fuzzball if we didn't crack some packs. And like last episode, I have some packs that were given to me that the only way for me to get through them is to double up and do 2 at a time. So here we are, and we're going to open the first pack. Is from Kingwood Hobbies. So again, I've already said a lot, but I feel like I can't say enough. Huge shout out to Trey. Let's see what's inside this pack of Spark of Hope donated by Kingwood Hobbies. All right, we're opening it up. It is a red die, and it is a card I don't have. So this is also good. It's not a legendary, but that's okay. It is the B-Wing. It is the 3-cost support vehicle. It is a hero vehicle. It has a die that reads 2 ranged plus 3 ranged, 1 disrupt, 2 shields, and 1 resource. It is a support vehicle, as I said. After the action phase begins, you may activate the support. So right after the action phase for each round starts, you activate and roll this die in. I saw this. The E-Wicket Lobot Maz player had 2 of these out in his semifinal game against Ray 2P2, R2P2. And it was just interesting. I'd never seen this card in action. And so he had both of them out. A new round started. He got to activate both and get their die in the pool. So that's pretty scary. Pretty interesting. I don't have any, so that's great. I love hero vehicles. I'm trying to get back into hero vehicles. I've been stuck on villains for so long. But I'm excited. I'm excited to do that. Next up is the uncommon. Order 66. It is the plot, 2-cost villain plot. Each of your opponent's characters gain Jedi. Before you draw your starting hand, shuffle up to 4 set-aside copies of Execute Order 66 into your deck. So, I feel like this was also on the table, but maybe it must have been in Standard. I think some people were trying out some Standard decks, because I can't imagine this would have fit in one of the Jank decks. But I saw it at Kingwood Hobbies on Saturday somewhere. Order 66. Each of your opponent's characters gains Jedi. So again, the trick is to run Execute Order 66, which is a 2-cost villain red event, which has remove all Jedi dice. And for each die removed, deal 1 damage to its matching character. So, it's kind of set up on the restricted list with Rebel Trader, because otherwise he'd be able to force you to activate a Jedi, or, regardless if it becomes a Jedi, and then they could spend the 2 to remove those dice and then deal damage, which would be very oppressive and not a feel-good experience at all. But Order 66 is still an interesting card. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm just curious to think about how it could be run. What kind of competitive decks or would it be run in? All right, commons. Commons are looking strong, I have to say. First up, we have Counterintelligence. It is a 0-cost event. Red event villain. Spot a leader to look at an opponent's hand and place an event from it on top of their deck. I have one of these in my Callus Hask deck that I mentioned, and it came in handy, especially against that Mace Zeb, right? I played it first round. I took the 1 event from his hand, I put it on top of his deck, and then when he power action Mace, you look for an upgrade, and then the rest of those cards go on the bottom of the deck. So I effectively buried a card from his hand into the bottom of his deck. So that was a fun play. But Counterintelligence, always good. But you have to spot a leader, don't forget. Night Sister Zombie. So this is one of the diceless characters. It is a character witch. It is a blue villain. 5 health, 5 character points. Indirect damage dealt to you must be assigned to this character last. So it's not a meat shield. After you activate this character, you may spot another witch to deal 1 damage to a character that has a curse on them. So after the Holocron came out, I started frantically kind of throwing deck ideas together. And one of my ideas was Elite Maw from Legacies, Elite Loose, and then a Night Sister Zombie. And try to run spells. I'm sure it'd be complete garbage, but, on brand for what we do here at Jank It Up Fuzzball. So Night Sister Zombie, a good pull for sure. Lastly, Disassemble, a 2-cost neutral event. Discard a diceless support, upgrade, or downgrade from play. So it costs a lot, too, but you can discard a diceless support, an upgrade, or a downgrade from play. So there you go. It has to be diceless, but you get rid of it. So that feels pretty good. And it has a chopper on the artwork. Disassembling looks like another robot or something on there. So thank you for that pack. Just to run down again, B-Wing was the rare. It is a hero support vehicle. We had Order 66, the villain plot, 2-point plot. We then had Counterintelligence, Night Sister Zombie, and Disassemble. Thank you, Kingwood Hobbies. Next up in our battle of packs is Game Shop of Destiny. So we're going to open this up. This is Game Shop of Destiny. Last episode, they gave us our first ever legendary with Yoda's lightsaber. Let's see what happens this episode. All right. It is not a legendary, but it is yet again another card I don't have. So this is a particularly good run of adding to Brian's collection. The rare is Mist Hunter. It is a 2-cost support vehicle. It is a yellow villain. It is Forlom and Zuckuss' vehicle. For those, I didn't know that, but apparently that's what it is. It has a die that reads 2 range, 3 range for 1 resource. Disrupt, discard, and a resource and a blank. After you activate a Bounty Hunter, you may activate the support. Then you may spot Forlom to re-roll this die. You may spot Zuckuss to resolve this die. So if you're running Forlom and Zuckuss, kind of need this in the deck. It just has so much additional value if you have both of them on your team, but it has additional value if you have either or on your team. So Mist Hunter. All right. The uncommon is Refusal. It is a downgrade, a blue hero downgrade. Damage symbols on attached characters' character dice are resource symbols instead. After attached character is dealt damage, discard this downgrade. So basically you put this on an opponent, and their damage sides are resource sides. Now, the only way they can take this off is if they take damage. So they either have to damage themselves or you damage them. But I'm guessing if you put them on, you're probably not damaging that character intentionally unless you're going for a kill shot. I think I used this once on Greg when he was playing Big Bad Vader, and that was fun for like a turn. But I don't know. I don't know exactly where it fits. I'm interested. Certainly, Hero doesn't have too many downgrades, and Refusal is certainly one that can be pretty particular. It has the artwork of like Luke's lightsaber after he rejects it on the island that he was hiding out on. So Refusal, 1-cost hero blue downgrade is the uncommon. Here are our common cards. First up is Misinformation. It is a yellow villain card. Choose up to 2 cards in an opponent's discard pile and place them on top of their deck in any order. Misinformation. Man, somebody's got to help me out. I don't know the purpose of this card. You can choose up to 2 cards in an opponent's discard pile and place them on top of their deck in any order. I suppose if you just want to try to bury other cards, you can put cards that maybe have a spot requirement that they can no longer meet, but just give them dead cards. That might be one thing. Or if there's a way for them to pull cards out of their discard pile, maybe. I don't know. But what would the best use of Misinformation be? I don't know. Next up is Pushing Slash. It is a 1-cost blue neutral event-move. Activate one of your blue characters, then you may resolve one of that character's character upgrade dice. If that character has a card titled Neiman Mastery on it, you may turn that die to any side. So there you go, Pushing Slash. I have one of these when I played Palpatine, Val. I had one of these underneath the Lightsaber Mastery plot. And I'm not sure if I used it a lot, but you use it, it costs 1. You can activate your blue, and then you get a little bit of action cheating. So I could see this being really useful on damage-dealing blue characters. Like Palp, I wonder, a lot of Palp is less aggro and more just go wide with his cheap abilities. But, put this on like Obi-Wan or on another, maybe Yoda, another aggro blue character, and I think that would have a greater impact. Lastly is Chain Lightning. It is a red neutral event. It is a 1 cost to deal 1 damage to a character. Then you may spend 1 resource to deal 2 damage to another character that shares a subtype with that character. Now, I had 2 of these in my deck at Kingwood Hobbies on Saturday, and I forgot to mention that the one time I played this to great effect, which was pretty awesome, was when I was playing Austin in the second round. He had Elite Hera, Rebel Engineer, and Elite Anakin. And Hera has been errated to be a character pilot and a leader. I believe she's a leader, but she's definitely a pilot. And Anakin, little Anakin, is also a pilot. And so I used this Chain Lightning. I believe I resolved Hux's special to play this for free. And then I paid 1 to hit Hera for 1 damage and then hit little Anakin for 2. And that felt good. Not that I like to pick on little kids, but getting max value out of a card is nice. So in that case, thanks to Hux's ability, I was able to get 3 damage out of 1 resource, and one dice if you think of it that way, but that's okay. So the second pack from Game Shop of Destiny, Mist Hunter, and then Refusal, and then we had Misinformation, Pushing Slash, and Chain Lightning. All right, those are 2 interesting packs. I will post them both up on the website, images of them both very soon this week. And let's end with a giveaway. I know I'm running long, but it was a super important, super meaningful, supersized holiday edition of Jank It Up Fuzzball. The last thing we have to do is give away one last monochromatic. And a quick shout out to Wesley from Michigan, who was our winner from episode 26. Wesley won the Old DACA monochromatic and a Jank It Up Fuzzball power action token. So congratulations, Wesley. 'Tis the season. Given the holidays, it is a red character. It is Leia Organa, Heart of the Resistance. So for all you Dirty Mill players, this card is for you. Honestly, it's red. It's Christmas time, red and green. There's no green characters in Destiny yet. Maybe there will be. But here we have Leia. She has 11 health, 12-15 cost. Her die reads 2 focus, 1 discard, 2 discard, 1 shield, 1 resource, and a blank. And she has a power action, which reads remove 1 of your character dice, discard cards from the top of the deck equal to the value showing on that die. So again, she is the Mill Leia, but she has a power action. And what better way to use that power action than with the Jank It Up Fuzzball power action poker chip token? So the winner of this will get both Leia Organa, the monochromatic, and 1 Jank It Up Fuzzball power action token. If you're interested in purchasing, I have about 15 left. And I'm probably going to order some more, but they've been super popular to those that have seen them, and I want to just say thank you to all those that have made purchases. But if you want some, you can still go to my shop, jankitupfuzzball.com/shop, and you can order them through there. How are we going to give this away? Well, you know what? I provided 2 packs, and I just have to say, I think they're pretty evenly spaced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post both packs, and I'm going to read through them one more time. I just want you to reach out to me through an email or through social media and tell me which of these packs would you rather have opened and why. So if the way you play, how you do it, if you only had one of these packs to add to your collection, why? Is it one of the commons? Is it the uncommon? Is it the rare? What would it be? So real quickly, the first pack from Kingwood Hobbies, B-Wing, Order 66, Counterintelligence, Night Sister Zombie, Disassemble. And then second pack, Mist Hunter, Refusal, Misinformation, Pushing Slash, and Chain Lightning. There you have it. What an episode. Again, I'm kind of at a loss, right? $286 raised for Toys-for-Tots just by playing some jank, rolling some dice, and having some fun. Shout out to all the Houston people that came out. So great seeing everyone. So great spending the afternoon playing Destiny and raising money for a good cause. And to everyone else listening, I just want to send my heartfelt thanks for allowing me to entertain you in my janky little way. I love this game. I love playing. I love talking about it. I love all the casual aspects of it. And, I'm becoming a little more competitive, but I know my lane. And my lane is jank, and I'm totally happy there. So happy holidays to you and yours. Remember, please, as you close out 2019, be thankful for what you have. Think of those that are less fortunate. But also, when you're playing Star Wars Destiny, play some jank, roll some dice. Most importantly, have some fun. Happy holidays, friends. We'll catch you after Christmas. Thank you.